Welcome back to a little tutorial series about all of the graphs in automation. Today we'll talk about the power versus traction graph. So what does it actually show? The most important thing, shown as the dashed line, is the grip on your tires. In this case I have a rear-wheel drive car, nice rivetto, and that means I will get blue lines here. For front-wheel drive cars you will get red lines, and for all-wheel drive cars you will get both. So this basically shows me how much load there is on the tire over the speed as the car is accelerating. And the test that it's done here is basically full acceleration from 0 to top speed. So as we are accelerating, we can clearly see the gear changes, and as we are shifting the gear and switching to a longer ratio, our acceleration force will decrease. And these are these steps basically you see here. Gear 1, Gear 2, Gear 3 and Gear 4. Basically what you then see is you will be very close to the grip limit in the lower gears, and it's less of a problem in the higher gears. Just in case your car has so much power and your first gear is so short that your theoretical acceleration force is higher than the grip, then your graph will look like this. So here you see the rear force, the actual traction force that you could apply is higher than what the tires can, and when this solid blue graph is over the yellow line, then you have wheel spin. Please have in mind this is all in dry conditions, so perfect grip, and now with this short first gear I get wheel spin even though I don't have a lot of power. If I then make the gear longer, I can reach a state where I'm very close to wheel spin, probably optimal for acceleration in dry conditions. But have in mind, as soon as you go to a dirt road or in rainy conditions, then you will have problems with this gearing, because you will have wheel spin in low gears and maybe even in second gear. So if your friction coefficient of the road drops to, let's say, 0.5, you get half of the potential grip, and then you get wheel spin also in second gear. So very important to know that. The most important thing with regards to the stats here is if you have too much wheel spin, then your drivability will decrease. As you see here, I lost 2 points of drivability here because I have wheel spin. There are of course different reasons for another loss, for example these huge gaps I have here, which is not very drivable as well. But there's another line in here, and this is this teal colored line here, and this is, as it's labeled here, the weight distribution. This goes here from 0.48 to 0.54 G. I don't know why the G label is in there, to be honest, because weight distribution is a percentage value, and if we take a look here at our stats, then we see our static weight distribution is 54% in the front and 46% in the rear. And this is exactly what we have here. We have here 54% front weight distribution when we almost have no acceleration anymore, so at top speed. So you see, at top speed we have the static weight distribution. We have a different one when we have high acceleration. Why is that? Basically the center of gravity of the body is where the inertia of the body during acceleration will pull backwards. Let me show how that basically looks. So this is now exaggerated, of course, so you pull here, the car is pulled up in front and pulled down in the back, and that's why you have more load on the rear axle during acceleration and less load on the front axle during acceleration. This is exactly what we see in the graph. Here we only have 48% in the front and the inverse 52% in the rear. What does that show you? If you have a rear-wheel drive car, then you shift the weight backwards onto the wheels, which is good for acceleration. We can increase that effect if we increase the ride height. So let's remember here the dashed line is somewhere at 0.38 and the teal line is at 0.48. And if I now increase the ride height, I will move the dashed blue line to almost 0.4, and this one here is down to 0.45, which means I have a maximum rear acceleration potential or weight distribution of 55%. So higher center of gravity, good for rear-wheel drive cars during acceleration, but of course bad for front-wheel drive cars, because then you have less load on the front axle because it's all in the rear. So that means for rear-wheel drive sports cars, this is how they should look like, right? No, because it's bad for cornering, obviously. For all-wheel drive cars, it really doesn't matter where your ride height is, because you always have the same grip on the front and rear. It doesn't matter how it's distributed. You might have to adjust your power split in case front axle doesn't have enough grip. That's why normally for all-wheel drive we also have a higher split in the rear. Another thing that can happen is at high speeds that you lose grip. So you see here the blue line is constantly decreasing. The main reason for that is the lift of the body. We also saw that the dynamic weight distribution here is decreasing, but the lift on the body, and especially on the rear axle, is here decreasing the grip dramatically. What you can do then is to place a wing, for example, and if we then add a little bit of downforce in the rear, we can also see here downforce is going up, less lift. Now I have positive downforce. Let's just make the maximum, not a lot, 10 kilograms. And then we see that we lose a lot less grip on the rear axle. If you don't do that, and if you have a really quick car, which I will demonstrate right now, then you might run into other problems. So what I've done now is to increase the engine gear a little bit, added a turbo, and we are at 200 horsepower almost for this very light car. And what you can see here is something that's a bit of a death trap. Basically we have constant wheel spin. The solid line is always above the yellow line. Only during the gear shifts we have more grip than power. And that means here at the very high RPMs we also have wheel spin. So yeah, absolutely undrivable. If you build something really weird, land speed record stuff, then you might run above 400 or 500 kilometers an hour. You might run into lift suddenly while you still have power to accelerate. So before you had grip, and then suddenly the lift is so much that the rear of the car actually lifts, and then you don't have any traction force anymore at all. And this is also a little bit of a surprise when the car was stable and then gets unstable at very high speeds. Also something you wouldn't want to have. So back to the setting, which is somewhat reasonable. Together with the gearing tutorial from last time, we can set the traction so that we don't have wheel spin, or just have very little wheel spin like this, to have a high drivability, and that's the most important thing. Of course, everything that I said is less of a problem when you are in the modern years where you have traction control. Traction control basically eliminates all of the wheel spin that you have. It's just that your power at low speeds goes to waste. But maybe you want high power at high speeds for high performance cars, then you have to control some of the high power at the beginning out of the system, because the tires just can't handle it. We have talked a little bit about downforce and how to shift more weight to the driven wheels and stuff, but of course what you can also always do is to use wider tires. Wider tires offer more grip, and you can increase the tire quality for more grip, or you can use softer compound for more grip as well. Everything that I said will help you to move the dashed lines up and keep the solid lines below, and that's the most important thing. Again, the weight distribution line is not really important, and it's just there to show you how the weight is shifting. Have in mind, rear-wheel drive cars will benefit. During acceleration will get a little bit of a grip boost. Front-wheel drive cars will not. They will actually have more struggles applying the power to the ground. So for now that's it. It was a quick one. Hope it's understandable. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I will answer them there. And see you all again at the next tutorial. Bye bye.